Hello everyone, how are you? It is a new Wine Wednesday and also a new time for me to do these Wine Wednesdays. Oops, just hoping my phone isn't gonna fall into my face here. Let me share this out and let me see if this is a better time for you. I'm trying an earlier time today, and then next week I might try a later time. So I'm gonna actually share it out to a few different places, and then we're gonna get going here. So if you have some wine-loving friends, please do share to those as you wish. And just a couple more places as usual. And I have a group called Plant Empowered Bon Vivants, mainly just kind of a hub for recipes, for if you're looking for recipe inspiration and things like that. But it is a safe group. You can ask any questions. Encourage you to join there. And then one more, and then we'll get going. So it's a beautiful day here in New York. It's actually gonna rain the next few days, so I'm actually really enjoying it, sitting out, trying to sit outside anyway and do some work. So let's see, there we go. So for those of you who have followed me, I guess you've noticed that I do Wine Wednesdays. I've been doing them for one of my clients, Vegan Wines, which is the first vegan online club in the United States. Very exciting. They're up to great things. And so now I'm starting to do them for my site, Sunny Gandera. You know, as my brand grows, and of course, you know, I'm a lot into plant-based food. I'm a chef. I'm also a wine educator. I have a lot of certifications, and my passion really is both food and wine and pairing them together. How does that relate to a vegan lifestyle, which is, of course, what I do. I do coach women who want to transition to a plant-based diet, a vegan lifestyle. I also work with companies and restaurants who want to add more plant-based items to their menu and wine lists, who are vegan friendly, as well as, of course, more natural wines that have very little, if any, additives, and certainly no chemicals and things that are bad for you. So working with both private and corporate groups, teaching classes, workshops, you know, anything I can do to promote a vegan lifestyle that is, you know, it's gourmet. I mean, you are not having to let go of anything when going vegan. You can pretty much do and eat whatever you want. There's always going to be an alternative for you. So no longer are the days where you have to forego cheese or dairy products, because now we have all these plant-based alternatives that are getting better and better every day. And when it comes to wine, you know, many people have noticed that, you know, not all wines are vegan. And, you know, maybe there are some additives in wine that you had no idea about. Most people think it's just grapes and yeast. So there is definitely not a lot of transparency in the wine industry, and many wines do contain some shocking ingredients that are allowed by both, you know, the governments here in the United States and in Europe. So my goal for these Wine Wednesdays is to really showcase you honest winemakers that are really doing it for the love of it. Certainly, yes, they are in business and also want to make money, but at the same time, the first and foremost, you know, passion is to create these products that really are in tune with nature and do no harm to their soil, to the land, because they want to preserve that for the next generation. And that's something that's lacking sometimes today, where people are just thinking about the profit and I have to maximize, you know, like they do with factory farming, just cram all these animals in and we don't care if they get sick or suffer, as long as we can sell the meat and to the lowest price and as much as possible. So with wine and with our beverage side of things, we also have to think about that, because many times that's being overlooked, and not a lot of people can hear about, you know, these producers that I'm going to talk about today, because they are smaller and they do it for the love of it, and maybe not as great at marketing themselves. I'm not talking about this person, but in general, you know, like I do the research and I find these hard to find wines sometimes, but sometimes they're not hard to find. Sometimes they are available in your store, but nobody's really talking about them. So today I wanted to, I don't know if you saw my Instagram or Facebook post where I was talking about today's Wine Wednesday, because most of the wines that I love to feature have, or not most of them, but a lot of them are female winemakers. I find they have a very delicate hand and great taste buds. They are from small family vineyards, people that, you know, again, love their land, and they are, you know, loving nature, and they want to not just respect nature, but give back to nature. And that's something that's really important, because we are not here for someone and someone is not here for us. We are here with each other, all living species. We need to respect each other and see how we can best coexist. So I do love those people that really are in tune with that. And of course, food-friendly wines, which means, you know, they aren't super, super high in alcohol or overly fruity, but they are really, really nice and refreshing. And you know, sometimes I also like wines from with different grape varieties that you haven't heard of. Not the typical Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Sometimes I cover that too, but also different regions that you may not have heard of. You know, not all wine is from California or, you know, the bigger regions that you may have heard of. You know, there are some smaller areas that produce wonderful wines, and what's so great about them is that you can get really high quality wines for a very low, or very reasonable, I should say, price. So those are sort of all the elements that I like to include in my wines. So why do I care about weird and different grapes? You may have seen sort of a commonality in my Wine Wednesdays. And much like I care to try different foods, I want to try different wines, right? I mean, sure, you could live off of Pinot Grigio and Cabernet Sauvignon and never take a chance on anything new. And hi, Hege, thanks for joining. You know, take a chance on anything new and live safe, right? But where's the fun in that? Where's the fun in just doing the same thing over and over and not really, like, you know, experimenting a little bit? So once you discover a new grape that you love, there's nothing like that thrill, like, oh my God, I found a new secret, I found something new, and I didn't realize that this texture or this flavor existed. And that's really what's so fun about food and wine, and especially with plant-based food, because many people come in and thinking that there's only, you know, grass and kale, right? And then meanwhile they're eating the same 3 animal proteins and thinking their food is so varied. Well, there's 20,000, 30,000 different plants and so many different ways of cooking it. So it's really about opening your mind. You know, do you have a preconceived notion of wine? You guys, if you're watching, I'm not sure who's on, because sometimes I can't read the comments right away for some reason, but if I know I see Hege on, a friend of mine from Norway, but if you are, you know, if you are a wine lover, or if you just like to have a glass of wine here and there, you know, what are some of your preconceived notions about wine? What do you expect when you open a glass or go to buy a bottle of wine? Are there any other questions that you have? You can interrupt me anytime. This isn't a speech that I'm giving to the ether, you know. You can come and interact with me, because this is what these sessions are for. So I want to get to today's wine, and then we can sort of talk around it. But today's wine I'm really, really excited about. It's from one of Italy's superstar winemakers and one of the most influential female winemakers in the world. Her name is Elisabetta Foradori, and this is the bottle here. It almost looked like it was a liter bottle. It's a kind of a weird shaped bottle, but it's kind of heavy, but it is actually a regular size, 750 ml. So this is, her specialty is Teroldego, which is a grape variety from the northeast of Italy. Basically, she has made her life's work elevating this grape to heights that you didn't think was possible. She took over the family winery at the age of 19. Love Italian wine. Me too, Hege. There's really nothing like it, right? And of course, going there, you know, is times 10. I mean, then you're just in heaven. So she took over the vineyard very early, because her dad died suddenly and at an early age as well. So she was talking about almost being forced to take over the winery, like it wasn't a choice of hers initially. But 75% of her vineyards is planted with Teroldego. Hege, have you heard of the grape Teroldego? So again, here I go with my grape, very, very sort of obscure grapes, right? What is Teroldego? It is, like I said, an ancient native variety to the Alpine Trentino region of Italy, which is has been grown in Italy for hundreds of years. And it's related to Pinot Noir, Lagrein, which is a German grape, and Syrah, among others. And it thrives in these high, sunny foothills and plateaus below the Dolomite peaks in the far northern Italy. It has a lot of Austrian influence, so it has this alpine, it's beautiful there. You see these snow-capped mountains, these gorgeous fields of vines. I personally haven't been there, but I'm dying to go. Lagrein, so you love that. Yeah, so it's related. So in a sense, we're going to talk about sort of the characteristics of it. But what I find is that it has this like really sort of deep purple color, but it's not inky like Zinfandel and maybe some of the cabs. And it's kind of like almost like a medium. You can kind of not see through it necessarily, but it just still looks light. And historically, it's a dark-skinned red grape variety, as I said, and it has this intense fruit character, relatively low in tannins. It does well with sometimes a little bit of chill, so it's perfect for the summer as well, and has this soft texture, and typically you want to enjoy this right away. It's not really for aging, although this is her basic bottle. I think it's like $25, $26. But, some of the wines she makes are aged in oak, and they can actually age for a decade. So there are some serious versions of it. But typically Teroldego, it's just kind of like everyday drinking wine. You're sitting having your dinner on a weeknight. And historically it was made in bulk, and it was like they were just quite thin and astringent wines and made for local consumption only. And they were typically mechanically harvested grapes, and chemicals were added to the wines and all this stuff. So when Elisabetta's family actually had purchased the vineyard in 1934, and her father bottled the first Foradori's vintage in 1964, but again, like I said, he passed unexpectedly in 1976, and her mother kept the winery going until Elisabetta, who now is running the vineyard, graduated with her enology degree, and fresh out of school, she just jumped into this first harvest in 1984, and she initially continued farming the land in the same fashion, but then she felt the wines was lacking soul, so she started changing everything. She started changing the training system from the pergola system, which is like where the vines are like high up, to Guillot, the French Guillot style, and she also started hand harvesting the grapes, and she converted the winery or vineyard to organic farming. And the results was a wine that was a lot more concentrated and complex, and her wines started winning both critical and consumer acclaim. But she felt that there was still something missing. And in the 90s, she started experimenting with biodynamic farming and winemaking, and she was finally certified in 2009. So this is also a biodynamic wine. And she stopped using cultured yeast and went to native yeasts, and she cut down on sulfur use among other things. And she also said that she herself changed along with her wines, that she started learning more, and she was like, really started listening to the soil. And I found her story, and she's so passionate. If you see a picture of her, you like, look her up. I'm going to put the name Elisabetta Foradori. She's this gorgeous, stunning woman who's just very animated, but also I'm going to read a passage that someone described her. I thought it was so fitting. But once she made all these changes, her wines are very vibrant, very energetic and elegant. And her two sons have now also joined her in the making of these wines, and they also have started their own line of wines. So the culture and tradition continues, which is really nice to see, because winemaking is hard work, and a lot of the younger generation, they choose not to continue. And so we lose all these fabulous wines, but in this case, we don't. Is sulfur only used as fertilizer in wine? It's not a fertilizer, Hege. Sulfur is usually made to stabilize the wine from it going bad or something weird happening to it. So it's used, some people add sulfur right away as the wine is fermenting, but most natural winemakers, they won't add any sulfur until maybe right before bottling. They'll just add a little bit, and there's a very low amount. It's called like ppm, so it's 200 ppms are allowed, you could say, and say in the United States traditional winemaking. Yeah, it's a conservation, Hege. Yes, exactly. It's nothing bad necessarily, but there are some, like, you know, it is bad if it's too much, and you can, you know, you can think of it when you smell it. Ooh, it smells like sulfur, right? Then you know that they've overdone it. But the chances are, if you don't add sulfur, then the wine can go wild, and you have this volatile acidity and all these other things that can happen to the wine. And some people don't mind it. Other people want a cleaner wine or more stable wine, so you stabilize it. Mostly it's for like mass-produced wines that are just sitting on the racks for ages and ages, and they just can't go bad. But these wines, you know, hopefully they'll go right away because they are sought after, and natural wines. And sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes they just stabilize themselves. So there's a lot of discussion. I can talk about that in a separate Wine Wednesday, because it is an interesting topic. So now, you know, Elisabetta is farming really very low intervention. She does nothing to the wines once it's in the winery. She just lets it do its thing. And I really just admire that. And she says that she wants to leave the land healthy and alive for her children. And I think that's really important. So I want to support those winemakers who are conscious of that, you know, that are not just thinking about, because I think, yes, you should make money and everybody has to live and eat, but why not do both? Why not find a way where, and clearly she has been successful at that. So I want to I want to just read this, because I'm just really mesmerized with her. And I tend to be with winemakers who are female, because there's not a lot of them, even though it may seem that there are more and more. Of course there are, but in the grand scheme of things, there are not a lot of them. And someone said, to meet Elisabetta Foradori is to be mesmerized by her beauty and elegance, her wit and charm, and her intensity and dedication. Her wines match her personality. These are strong yet elegant, fun yet serious, drinkable yet profound. So that's her. Those are her wines in a nutshell. And you know, a big reason I drink wine is really not just to drink wine and just have something to drink with my dinner, but it's really to learn more about people. To learn more about different parts of the world, the way they eat, they live, they drink, and they think, and to grow myself as a person. There's always more to learn out there, and there's a bigger world out there, not just what goes around in your town or even in your country, right? Or in your part of the country. And, you know, in essence, I want to look for those people who are really excel at their skill. And there's no doubt that Elisabetta Foradori is the top maker of Teroldego in the world. In fact, she's called the Teroldego lady. That's her nickname. You know, I'm so happy that I can introduce this bottle to you today, and hopefully you can find it where you are. Hege, you should definitely be able to find it in Switzerland, I hope. Like I said, this bottle was around $25, $26. And let's go ahead and taste it. And if you have any other questions, please let me know. So I opened this a little while ago. I got it yesterday at one of my favorite stores in New York City called, let me give a shout out to Flatiron Wines and Spirits if you haven't been. They're on Broadway and I think 21st Street. So I can definitely smell red cherries, dark sort of smoky notes, a little earthy too, dark berries. You know, her wines are definitely very fresh, not super full-bodied. It's medium-bodied, but you know, it has all of a combination of so many different flavors, like chocolate, olives, herbs, even like blood oranges, and lots of texture in her wines. She's big on texture, and I'm big on texture, not just when it comes to wine, but also when it comes to food. If I don't have different textures in food, if it's just kind of like mushy, I'm like, ugh. You know, I need like to be excited about texture, you know, because that's also a way we can taste. It's part of the flavor profile. I will planning to go to North Italy next week. Oh, well, excuse me, Hege. I mean, this is why I love, I should really move back to Europe, and I am considering it if something happens in 2020 where we have the same, you know, person in charge. But it's just so great that you can just go to a different country over the weekend, and you are so central that you can do that. And I'm jealous about that, because there's just so many wonderful areas in your part of the world. And great wine, and Swiss wine too, by the way. It's hard to find Swiss wines here. You can, but they're quite expensive. It doesn't have high tannins, so like tannins are the ones that kind of dry out your mouth like sandpaper, right, on your tongue. It's not very high in tannin. So this is actually, could also be a red wine for those of you who are not loving reds, but are more white wine drinkers and want to kind of dabble into the red wine world. Oh, I would love to come here. Yeah, I'm going to take you up on that. I definitely want to plan a trip next year. I'm thinking about going home to Norway for Easter. I'm actually quite homesick now because Easter isn't big here in the United States. You know, you have Easter Sunday and you see Easter things in the stores, but people don't take off. You know, it's just that one day. Meanwhile, in Norway, they're off already, you know, full week at the mountains, and they really know how to do it. And I think Europeans in general are better at taking off than Americans. And I'm starting to appreciate that side more as I get older and want to calm down a little bit. But so this Teroldego, I mean, what would you pair with it, right? Because I'm always giving food suggestions, and I think there is just such a vast number of things you can pair with this. I'm thinking about like anything from like a barbecue tofu dish to any type of lentil dish. Like there's this mujadara, and I don't know if I probably am butchering a mujadara, which is the lentils and you know, the Middle Eastern lentil dish that's sauteed caramelized onions and lentils. Has a little bit of spice, and this can take a little bit of spice, but certainly you could go for anything from grain dishes to pizzas and pastas even. Think about dishes that they have in northern Italy. I always say what grows together goes together. So even like a little bit of a cream pasta maybe would go well, because although the tannins are low, the acidity is quite high in these wines, which makes them so food friendly. And Teroldego, I should say, is not very common. You can't find this grape everywhere like you find Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, right? So most often I see them doing a little bit of it in California. I've even seen some examples in Australia with smaller winemakers. But I do have an exciting, and I give another shout out to Vegan Wines. Check out their website on veganwines.com, the first vegan online wine club in the United States, and is one of my clients that I consult for. They have an exciting wine coming out from the Finger Lakes, from Red Tail Ridge. They do have a delicious Teroldego, slightly richer, fuller bodies, but they are one of the very few that actually do very, very good. And they even have a little bit of sparkling Teroldego, which I've never seen before, although it's really hard to come by even at the winery. But if you ever want to go to a wonderful wine region in the United States, do consider the Finger Lakes. It's really a great place to go, besides Northern Italy and Trentino, of course. So let me see if there are any other questions here. I don't see any other questions, but maybe it's this time is good for you, Hege, because it's probably around 9:30, and you're sort of winding down, getting ready for bed or just watching TV. And I'm trying to sort of find out what the best time of day is for anybody, because you know, my clients are from around the world. I work online, so I deal with Europeans and even from Australia and of course Americans. So next week I'll probably try a little bit later to see if I can get some of my American friends on, so maybe around 7 p.m. But do give me feedback about what you would like to see, Hegad. If you have any specific topics that you would find interesting, I'm sure there are other people who share your opinion, and anybody who's watching the replay, please let me know. Please let me help you, because I want to talk about wine in a fun way. Don't feel intimidated. Don't feel like, oh, I have nothing intelligent to ask, because it's really, your questions are your questions. And if you're wondering, then you deserve an answer, and hopefully I can give it to you. You know, we'll do more fun food and wine pairings and things like that. Also, I have planned for upcoming Wine Wednesdays, and I'm going to keep them here on Facebook. I was thinking of moving them to Instagram, but I do think that Facebook is my jam for now, and then I'll post other things on Instagram. For me, the time is good. Okay, great. Thank you, Hege. So maybe, you know, we'll mix it up. Maybe we'll do a couple of times during this time of day, and then some a little bit later. But in any event, so again, this is Elisabetta Foradori. This is her 2016 basic Teroldego. This is an IGT wine, meaning she doesn't, there is a DOCG from Teroldego Rotagliano, it's called, but she declassifies. I'm not sure why, probably because she doesn't follow the same winemaking requirements that they have in the DOC, but she is a wonderful, wonderful winemaker that I highly recommend any of her bottles. She also does wonderful white wines from indigenous grape varieties as well, and yeah, DOCG stands for Denominazione Originata, Controllata e Garantita. So basically an denominated origin that's controlled and guaranteed by the governing body that basically controls the quality of the zone, different wine zones in Italy. So they basically have a tasting panel. They have to taste the wines and they have to test the wines, and they go to visit the vineyards and make sure you train the vine a specific way, you harvest a certain time, you grow certain grapes. Some grapes are not allowed in the DOCG. DOCG is the highest denomination. Then you have DOC, which of course isn't guaranteed, it's just controlled. And then you have IGT, which is Indicazione Geografica Tipica, which is just a geographical region. So you can grow anything and you want, basically, and do whatever you want, but it has to be from that specific geographic region. But you can grow any grape you want, you can do whatever you want with the wine, but it has to come from that delineated origin. Thought it was quality control. Yes, exactly. It's the same as AOC, Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée in France. So it's DOC is, you know, the Italian version, and Spain has the same. And here we have viticultural areas here in the United States, but we're much less strict than Europeans. So hopefully that, if you find those things interesting, I could always do a Wine Wednesday on that. I just don't want it to be like too dry or too sort of in-depth, but you know, definitely it's very useful, because once you see it, or DOC, you can sort of, and you see where it's from, you know that, oh, because sometimes the grape isn't listed on the label. So then, you know, you'll know that, okay, well, in that grape, it has to be, if it's red, it has to be either these grapes or those grapes, or for whites, they're those grapes, or maybe they're not even allowed to grow white or red grapes in that specific region. So it gets a little complicated, and the wine world likes to confuse people, but I think we shouldn't bother too much with that. We should enjoy. And soon, you know, once you get into wine and you start to really, you know, get into learning more, it'll come natural to you to even look at these names, and you'll just know it. But it takes time. So that brings me to my initial, what I started the Wine Wednesday with. Try different grapes. Try a different region. If you don't know what to get when you go to the wine store, I'm always here. I'm always available. You can send me a DM. You can comment on one of my videos, or get to know your local wine store and people who work there. They're more than happy probably to recommend, and someone that shows interest in trying different wines because they want to sell all their wines. So thanks for pouring your wisdom as well as wine. Thank you, Hege. I hope you have something delicious in your glass, and if you ever want to share a special wine from Switzerland with us and post a picture or something, we'd be very happy, because I know they have wonderful, delicious wines. In fact, Swiss wines are so good that probably a majority of them are consumed locally, as they should, and I don't blame you. But do enjoy it on me, and I'm so happy to hear also that the plant-based world is expanding where you are and becoming more popular. Around the world, we will conquer one plant at a time. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Hege, for all your questions and for being here with us. Happy Easter if I don't talk to you. And for those of you who don't celebrate Easter, Passover is coming up. And if you don't celebrate any of them, just have a drink on it. Pretend, you know, just enjoy. And I will see you guys soon. Bye.